Hi, I'm not at home. Don't worry about it. So I have watched the first half of part 3 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. When I did my video for part 2, quite a few people recommended that I split part 3 into 2 sections. I think just because it's so long. I think there's like 48 episodes and there would just be too much to talk about all at once. So that was the recommendation and that's what I did. So I've watched the first 24 episodes of part 3, and because I have to talk about it all, because I can't talk about it all at once, because I can't talk about the whole season, this video might be a little bit shorter. So the way I'm going to break it up is I'll talk about the new characters, the new magic system, and the new formatting, and just like generally how I'm feeling about part 3 so far, and then we'll talk about some of my favorite scenes and episodes specifically. If you're curious, I love part 3 so far. Starting with Jotaro. Jotaro. I love Jotaro. So his introduction was in the prison cell, not because he was arrested because they were trying to keep him there, but because he was trying to keep other people safe from this new thing that's haunting him, this thing that won't let him die, won't let him die by his own hand, will get anything he wants. He can break all laws of physics and all odds with this thing that's attached itself to him. Enter Jojo, Joseph Joestar, and his friend Avdol. So he's so grumpy, he's so moody, and he's so terse and short with his mom, which honestly, you know, I'm sorry, but his mom's kind of annoying, so I don't fault him for that. But he comes off as such a brat, you know, very stoic, very emotionless. But as you get to know him, as the episodes go on, we see how tender and caring he is, to the point that one of my favorite scenes, because it's funny and because I relate, is there was this little girl, she's like 11 or 12, that's following them around for a few episodes, and at one point they're being attacked by a killer car, naturally, and she falls down. They're all supposed to run and she falls down, and she's the weakest link, and she should, you know, she's gonna get killed. And she's like, oh no, this is terrible. Oh, woe is me. I can't get up. I'm gonna die. Somebody needs to come back and save me, but they can't because they'll die. Oh, this is terrible. I don't remember her exact dialogue, but it was just a really long monologue. And in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, you're kind of annoying. Just get up and run. Why are you not running? If you can do all of that, then you could probably just get up and run. And then Jojo, he was the one that turned back for her. He shows up out of nowhere, picks her up, and he's like, if you can say all this, why can't you get up and run, you annoying brat? Like, he basically said exactly what I was thinking. But that's kind of his dynamic of, he'll do what needs to be done. He won't allow people around him to get hurt. He really genuinely cares and has so much tenderness and caring in him. He just has this, not facade, this exterior of just toughness, and it could be taken as him not caring or as him being very cold and unfeeling, but it's just the way he presents himself. But in reality, he genuinely cares for his mom. It seems like it annoys him how doting his mom is, but it matters to him when she's not there to give him his kiss before school. It matters to him when she falls ill and could die. It matters to him when the people in his life and the friends in his life, even the annoyances in his life, like that little girl, when they're in danger and he can help, he will. So love him from the start. I think he was a great introduction to the stand system from episode 1. I was so intrigued, but also he was a great character to peel back the layers on very slowly. And I know, well, I don't know, but I assume based off of the comments that I got from my part 2 review that I assume that Joseph is the fan favorite Jojo, or one of the fan favorites maybe. So I feel like maybe I'm gonna not have the right opinion, but I like Jotaro more, I think. I think he's my favorite Joestar so far, only by a little bit. So it could, as I finish out part 3, I could flip-flop back. But the fact that with each season, so far, I've loved every part of Jojo that I've watched. But with each season, I like the next Jojo more. It'd be kind of killer if that trend kept up. Quickly going through the other main characters that we focus on in this section of the story, Joseph is back and he's more mature and older and a little bit wiser, but for the most part, he's still himself. He looks a little bit different, he sounds a little bit different, but he still is doing like a lot of his catchphrases. We got at least one time of him saying, "I know what you're gonna say next." More of his sneaky, conniving, willing to do what it takes. One of my favorite scenes was, okay, so Avdol, when he died, I didn't appreciate that. I love his character. I loved his introduction. I loved him introducing us to the stand system and explaining things to us. I did not want him to die. And the fact that a very heavy episode, which I will talk about in a little bit, ended on him coming back and saying, "Oh no, I never died. I just like, you know, the bullet didn't go through my skull. It just bruised my skull." And I went, you know what happened to him. So he tells this to Polnareff, and then he walks up with everybody else and everybody just keeps walking and talking. And Polnareff is like, "Hey, our dead friend is back. That's kind of cool. Maybe you should acknowledge that." And they're all just like, "Oh no, yeah, we knew. Yeah, we actually helped him survive, and we brought him here, and we've been lying to you this whole time because, you know, you're stupid." And it was so funny. But he's still willing to do whatever it takes is what I'm trying to say. Avdol, I've already talked about. I really enjoyed his introduction. He did a great job of introducing us to this new system, giving us information piece by piece. He was a good information doler. He was the one that knew more than everybody else and was able to pass on that information to us in a way that was engaging and interesting. Info dumpy, yes, but I mean, it was interesting, so I wanted the information. Kakyuin also had an amazing introduction at school with his paint. Do you remember when Jojo was just walking, being swarmed by all the girls, and he had this painting, this really bad painting of Jojo, and he slashed it, and then Jojo got slashed too. And every mark he made on Jojo just continued to make marks on him too, and while the painting aspect of it really never came back, at least as far as I am, his stand was very cool, and it made sense with the stand and what it was able to do. And he was also our introduction to these little octopus bug thingies that Dio embeds in their brains or in their person, and then the tentacles go into their brain and kind of take them over, which was a really interesting concept, an interesting way to introduce Dio back into the story and have his presence really affect the story, but still build that tension of, okay, when does Dio come back on this scene? But introducing how he's controlling these people, how he has so many people working under him, and continues to elaborate on this new system in really engaging and interesting ways, and forcing the stands to battle against each other so that we can see how cool the stand fights are going to be. And finally, we have Polnareff, just the best himbo. I think half the problems that they encountered in the first 24 episodes of part 3 were because of Polnareff not picking up basic context clues or like having any sort of suspicion in his system and just falling into traps. Being an airhead. Polnareff is airhead, now we fight, is like half the episodes. So that's our main team, and I enjoyed their dynamics immensely, but I also enjoyed how they grew and learned together. They played off of each other, like when that one guy with the big arms, but like the rest of his body, like he did not work out at all. And when they saw him and they all gathered around him and they were laughing at him, and then they saw his stand and how his stand was just making the car look a lot bigger and beefier than it was, but really when they look at it, it's disappointing just like the guy. And they all started laughing at the stand, and it was like the camaraderie, but also how devoted they were to each other. Polnareff making the huge mistake that caused Avdol to die, and how much that affected him, how much that hurt him. Them knowing that Polnareff is a fool, an airhead, a ditzy boy, but they love him and they want to stand by his side. They're devoted to him. They get at each other's throats, like when they were fighting the sun, and they all figured it out before Joseph did, and they were like, are you really this dumb? And I'm just like, I'm standing next to him going, yeah, he's dumb, but you are gonna explain it though, right? Because I don't think he gets it, so you should explain it to him. But also so loyal to each other, trying to help each other find the ones that they're trying to protect or that they lost. When Jotaro was on the phone with his grandma and he was like, don't worry, Jojo, your husband is going to be fine, grandpa's going to be fine because I'm with him. At the end of episode 24, when Jojo and Jotaro were talking about the future ahead of them and how it's going to be a long road, and then they were like, yeah, but we're not alone, and then the two others pulled up and they were like, yeah, it's actually pretty all right. It's really sweet and I love it. Now, talk about the stands, our new magic system, which I've already talked about, but I love the stand system. Yes, the magic system that I've been learning and trying to wrap my head around is now poof. And a whole new one is here. Sorry, a whole new one is here. I realize that might be a little bit annoying, but I didn't mind it because it was so cool. From its introduction, I was so into it. Not only do I love the different stand designs, but also seeing them fight each other has been the most fun. Not only is each episode, or every other episode, because some episodes are two-parters or some stand battles are two-parters, not only is each episode introducing a new type of stand that I get to understand what their abilities are, what unique way they have to fight in order to use their abilities, because it's not really like, you know, this one rules them all. It's they all have different weaknesses and abilities, and they have to figure out an appropriate fighting style in order to do what they need to do. Like the weakest stand, strength-wise, is also one of the most powerful stands because it can get inside your brain and cause you to feel the pain that the stand user is feeling. And that stand user is able to then manipulate the entire team, because if they hurt him, they hurt Jojo. Like, that's smarmy, but that's brilliant. And each stand, because they have different abilities, different weaknesses, different fighting styles, no fight is exactly like the last one. Each one is fresh and new and exciting, and sometimes you get to see the unique things the stands can do and how one is really strong against another. Sometimes the stand we're facing off against is just too strong for us, and we have to think really, really creatively to get out of this. And sometimes it's a matter of working together and figuring out how we can play off of each other and trust each other. Like, just know what the other one is going to do. Really, really pay attention. I'm thinking again about the fight with the weakest stand, and how Jotaro was able to trust his stand when the thing tried to get in his ear and he caught it at the last second, but then also when he tried to put it in the little girl's ear, and he knew somehow that Hydroplant Green would wrap its tail around the stand so that it could pull it back out, or when Hydroplant Green had to unravel itself in order to defeat the Nightmare Clown. And every time Star Platinum comes out of Jotaro, first of all, I get excited because the character design, the stand design for Star Platinum is so cool. But then every time he starts punching, it doesn't get old. I don't get tired of it. It's just so satisfying. Makes me smile every time. Makes me excited every time. I love the fights in this series. And now that'll lead us into the new structure, which this is very episodic. It's very much, okay, oh, by the way, I turned that lamp on if the lighting changed. Sorry. It's very episodic. It's very much 1 to 2 episodes of introduce new stand user, learn their stand abilities, try to figure out how we can fight them, try to figure out where the stand user is so we can defeat them as well, navigate situation, defeat enemy, move on, find new stand user, to the point that it's like, how in the world did we not know about stands up until this point? Because they're literally everywhere. Like, I realize that the format of this is far less isolated. It's far less closed off, like the settings. I mean, we still traveled in parts 1 and 2, but in this one we're going worldwide. We're going around the world to different countries, but it's like everywhere around the corner we're finding a new stand. And that does make the formula of it feel predictable. And I could definitely see, if we're doing this for 48 episodes, I could definitely see this starting to feel stale by the end. I don't feel stale with it just yet, even though the repetitive structure is noticeable. I still am enjoying discovering each new stand and how uniquely different each fight scene is, as well as I'm still loving the character dynamics of our crew so much that I'm just not really fussed over it. But because this is such a long season, I could see maybe my next review being a little bit less excited. But overall, I have enjoyed these 24 episodes so much. I just look forward to watching the show. It makes me smile, it makes me laugh, and I feel like parts 1 and 2 built me up to this understanding of not expecting some grand plot line that carries the story. I more expect the plot line to be in the background and something that every now and then reminds the characters that they have to keep moving forward, but not really the point of the story. And so the fact that the plot in part 3 has turned so episodic, it's not very jarring to me, because I don't rely on the plot in this series. I rely on the characters and the chaos. And I do think that some of the humor has died down. I don't think that it's quite as strong in part 3, at least so far, at least not as much as in parts 1 and 2, but the chaos is still there. Like, for instance, there's a GIF that gets passed around on my Discord constantly, and it's this one, and the whole time I've just been waiting. And when I met Kakuin, I have been waiting. Since I met him, I'm like, that's the guy. So when's this scene gonna happen? What's the context around the scene? And it turns out the context around the scene is just, I felt like doing it. I felt like making this scene happen. I mean, obviously there is context around it. Kakuin has been, there's an impersonator, there's someone pretending to be him, he's acting very strange, very much not like himself. So this is one of the signs that, like, what's wrong with you, right? But really, why did this scene happen? Because we felt like doing it. Like, there's no context that can make this GIF better. Okay, some scenes and episodes that I really loved. I think the first big villain, monster of the week that I really, really loved was the Ebony Devil. It was such a creepy stand. And part 3, just in general, it leans way more into the creepy and the gross. It leans more, one of my patrons, after I finish each episode, I pop over to my Discord on Patreon and chat about each episode, and one of my patrons has been telling me what each of the classic horror inspirations for the villains were. I'm not a music buff and I'm not a movie buff, so I know that this series is littered with so much pop culture and has so many references and things that only enhance the experience of the story. And unfortunately, because that's not where my interest is, I don't pick up on this stuff. Like, I don't see that side of the series, which is unfortunate, because I know that I would just appreciate the series that much more if I could pick up on these things. But also, I do get to just appreciate the story for the story that it is. But I do think after I finish the series, I'll go look at some of the references and look up some videos that kind of break down those things, so that I can appreciate the mastery of the references side of it all as well. But this has become my second favorite series of all time, even without any of that knowledge. But anyway, I love that the series leans on all those classic horror things, because I love going into these episodes and getting this eerie, uncomfortable, overwhelming feeling for so many of the people that we face in this part. Some of the stands that we experience are so creepy, and those are my favorite episodes. This is a strange thing about me, and I always feel weird admitting it, but I really enjoy body horror, especially parasitical body horror. Like a creature latching onto your body, feeding off of you, and destroying you slowly as it's taking from you is just such a terrifying but fascinating and gripping type of horror that I just always enjoy. So the parasitical stand was definitely one that I enjoyed. I really enjoyed the light stand because it was just such an interesting introduction, as well as evolution of how we're supposed to deal with this. With first we see the stand in the mirror in the bathroom, and it's like crawling through the window trying to get at him, and when he turns around it's not there, and we continue to do that in different environments and different settings. It's like I can see it and it can hurt me, but I can't see it outside of this reflection. And they gave good enough clues about, like, as they were piecing it together, the fact that mirrors are just a reflection of light. They gave enough clues that I was able to say, oh, I know what this is, before they sorted it out, which was really satisfying. I love it when shows do that. And then the way that it was following them around by bouncing off different reflections, and then eventually got into their car, and then when they crashed the car and then got out and were trying to get away from it, and it was in the kid's eye, and they were trying to get the kid to look away from him, but they couldn't. And then there was like a decoy stand user that they thought they caught, and then it wasn't him, and then it was this other one. It was just, oh, it was so fun. And I've already brought up the killer car once or twice and the user for that, but I also just really, again, back to the characters and their dynamics and how much fun they are to follow. I love that they're on this mission. They have their own goals. They're going after trying to save the people they care about, or avenge the people that they care about, and and then, like, the moment someone just starts messing with them, they all turn into hotheads, and they're just like, we have to hunt this guy down. I forgot what my main goal was. I don't really care that I have someone sick at home, or that I'm trying to avenge my sister. Like, none of that matters to me right now, because that guy, he's really annoying. So I need to find him so I can beat him up. And they go and do the dumbest, like, obviously they're being messed with, so they're like, oh, no problem, I'll just pass the guy. What? Now he's being annoying. I gotta pass him again. Oh no, like, now we're falling off a cliff. And they get jerked around so much by this guy just because they're hotheads, and I love that for them. The old lady who, his name isn't Centerfold. His name is Centerfold to me, but I know that's wrong. Hang on. It's Jay Guile. His mom, Inya Guile, which is also not the version that I watched, or I guess not the subtitles that I read. They say it in the sub version, which I go back and forth between sub and dub depending on if I'm watching it on the treadmill or watching it while I'm chilling. But the subtitles don't, so that doesn't stick with me as much. Anyway, while Inya, the old hag, while her stand, the fog stand, her episodes weren't the most engaging, the most exciting to me. The reveal at the end that they were actually in a graveyard the whole time, not a city, and she was just manipulating all those corpses. Oh, such a good ending to that section. Naturally, I've already brought up the Nightmare Clown as well, but definitely one of my favorite stands was Lally-Ho, the child. What was he? A year old or something? 9 months old? The baby that was manipulating, that was using the Nightmare Clown, and they would go to sleep and wake up in this colorful world where they were trapped. They couldn't get out on their own. They had to be woken up, and they could be harmed in the nightmare world, and it would harm them in the real world. And if they got killed there, it's done. The scene where the eyeballs were falling into his mouth, oh, it was horrible. It was horrible, and I loved it so much. The voice actor in the sub for that one, oh, I loved that clown voice. And the fact that they would wake up and forget, so they couldn't even prepare. They couldn't even, like, stay awake or make sure to sleep in shifts and wake each other up after a short amount of time. They couldn't even fight this truly, they were trapped, but they were trapped to this fate, because when they wake up, they just know they had a nightmare and they know something's off, but they don't know what, and they're trying to carve messages into their own arms in order to remember, but they couldn't get there. They even started turning on each other in that episode because of it. Oh, it was so good. And they essentially won this one by luck, because they didn't even realize that if Kaguya fell asleep while his stand was still was activated, then the stand could work in the nightmare realm, because it couldn't otherwise. That was sheer dumb luck. That was, I'm using my stand to try to save us, and they don't get it, so they knock me out, and it happened to be that I can now fight here. Without that piece of luck, they would have all died. They would have all died. Last episodes that I want to talk about are the ones, well, I thought that they seemed like Pet Cemetery episodes, but on the person who's been helping me out on Patreon said Nightmare on Elm Street. So it's the one where the genie appeared, and Polnareff first asked for treasure and then asked for his sister to be brought back from the dead, as well as Avdol. And so the genie first brought his sister back, and he pretended to bring her back, but it was a fake. And going through, first of all, starting the episode off with Jojo saying, I have to go tell Avdol's dad something that every parent fears to hear most, which was like so cruel to say now that I know that Jojo knew that Avdol was alive, and like that was Avdol pretending to be his dad. Like, that's such a mean thing to say to Polnareff. I mean, I realized they were still trying to keep this secret, but you don't have to go so hard. So that line alone struck me and was, yeah, don't like to think about that. But then Polnareff seeing his sister brought back from the dead, but she wasn't right. She wasn't herself. She was this half-made murderous thing that was trying to feed off of him. And I loved watching Polnareff deal with the tragedy of that wish of a loved one coming back, but their time has passed, and so for them to come back it wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be, that person wouldn't be that person. That's not the order of things. And so Polnareff seeing his sister and the pain, the tragedy of seeing her in this state, and eventually coming to the conclusion of, no, I just want her to rest in peace. No, I just want her back in the grave. I want things set right. Trying to force her back on this earth is not the kindest thing. It's not the correct thing. And kind of having to come to that conclusion of his grief, especially because so the book Pet Cemetery is one that was very impactful for me, and so I was really making those correlations of the lessons I learned when reading Pet Cemetery, and then watching Polnareff learn those lessons here, and seeing him also mourn. And when his sister and the fake Avdol were feeding off of his body, feeding off of his flesh, and he was like, well, I mean, I deserve this. It's my fault. Avdol's dead. It's my fault I couldn't protect my sister. Yeah, them destroying me this way to make themselves whole, it does seem fitting. Oh gosh, it was so heavy. Those 2 episodes were really, really heavy for me. So ending those episodes with that comedic reveal of, oh yeah, no, we all knew he was alive. We were just lying to you. Because you're not so good at keeping secrets. It was such a great ending to those episodes. Man, I could go on and on about the fights. There really weren't very many episodes that I was like, I didn't really care about that one. Like, I enjoyed these 24 episodes so much. Anyway, my expectation was for this to be a shorter video, because I'm only talking about half of the season, or of the part, so I can't talk about it in depth. But I still had so much to talk about. I know in part 1, in my video for part 1, I said that this has become my new comfort series, and I know that that's a weird thing to say for JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, but I still feel that way. Halfway through part 3, I still feel like this is my new comfort series. I look forward to each episode so much. It always has me smiling. It always has me excited and hyped. I have such a good time with this series. It sincerely has become one of my all-time favorites, and I'm nervous about saying that on the internet before having finished it, because who knows, I could end up not liking it going forward, but where I am right now, I love it so much. Anyway, thank you for listening to this rambly mess. I will see you again soon with part 2 of part 3 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. Please chat with me more in the comments. I'll see you again soon. Bye.